Kriya book.
Yeah.
So I just read the first Kriya.
Okay.
And I think it's really very good. So it is like whatever we have discussed and whatever we are doing is the first Kriya only. So hum or hamsa.
Hamsa, yes. Hamsa is
Uh,
the Swan.
yeah. So then that explanation is there. So that's good.
Yes. So in the Kriya path, it's about prana being stopped.
Yeah, yeah. So I think ultimately the aim of everything is to still the mind and
Yes.
stop the movement.
Yes.
And whatever techniques you adopt to get there, there are many. So this is one such kind of technique.
Yes. That's correct.
So that's all we are trying to do. That we are just trying to stop that movement. So
Yes.
here in terms of prana, it is mentioned you stop the vibrations of prana.
Yes. That's true. That's correct. So let me explain what I found and then we can go through each one of these. So this morning I was reflecting about the experience. So what is this? What is experience and who is experiencing and what is getting experienced? Three things. So there is something as an experience and there is something called as somebody is experiencing and something what is that which is experience, meaning what is that which experience. So this whole thing is about experience and we don't know what it really means. So what I found out is if we were to do the following: one, we have to establish moral foundation within ourselves. In every given breath, we need to observe what is happening in the mind. So in this regard, all the three concepts from three different people. One is if you take Gautama Buddha, then next Shankaracharya, or sorry, next is Patanjali, and the third one is Shankaracharya, in the order of their existence, if we were to take. So, if we take the Buddha, he talks about 10 immoral deeds to be given up. If we go by Patanjali, he talks about 5 yamas and 5 niyamas. And if we were to go by Shankaracharya, he talks about the sadhana chatushtaya, along with the Shad Sampatti, what somebody has to acquire. So before doing anything, before even watching the breath, before jumping into spiritual awakening, Kundalini, or whatever it is, I found that this is the most important thing. That is first to check our level of moral values. So if we were to go by, let us say, Patanjali, since we don't know much about Buddha teaching, and Patanjali is something which is there in the Sanatana Dharma or Hindu philosophy, if we were to take that, then we can really see how this whole things unwinds itself. So the first winding is, or the first thing is to understand that there is this body which does not exist in true sense. It exists, but not in true sense. Second is to understand that there is mind which exists, and mind is the one which experiences anything whatsoever. Even with the body or without the body, it would be same. So that is the second one. And the third one is this consciousness which is available and comes into existence when that condition matches. Otherwise, it just exists. There is nothing like I am existing because of this person. Because the person is there, this consciousness is there. If the person is not there, there is no need for that consciousness to arise in that. So there are three basic things. Now, in the uh, normal world, waking world, we or that person thinks that he exists. This is the problem. See, what are we trying to solve is an individual existence versus the universal existence. Universal existence is there, but the individual existence is not there. So, who is dying and who is being born is an individual existence or individual consciousness, if we were to use that word, individual consciousness. And what sustains everything is the overall, all pervading, the supreme self, the God, or whatever we want to call. So, if we were to take Patanjali as an example, first thing he talks about is Yama. And we have spoken about it for long. But what I found is without this, experiencing Brahman or experiencing that consciousness is not possible. Reason behind the consciousness is always pure, it's not impure. It has got nothing to do with anyone. It has no bias, no tendencies, nothing to solve, nothing to be worried about, nothing to be worked about, nothing to deliver, nothing to take, nothing to sense, nothing to smell, all of that. All is part of that entity which doesn't have anything to do with any one of these what is associated with mind. So, if we don't have a proper yama, it's not possible, no matter how much intellectually we can understand it. Meaning, since we have the buddhi, which is the intellect, we can sharpen the intellect to understand the concepts. Perfect. So we can say yama means rules. So these are the 5 rules. So we can say ahimsa, non-violence, and all of that, the remaining 4. But that really doesn't make sense, because what makes sense is ahimsa as an implementation. How do we implement? Is make the consciousness as the policeman. In each breath going in and each breath going out, which is what happens and which is what is the loss. Meaning every new breath is a new birth and every breath going away is a death. Considering that, mind becomes fearful and then it starts looking morally. Otherwise, it doesn't. So, in every breath, the person should be able to establish the moral foundation of ahimsa. So, let's say I have this attitude of getting angry. Anger is a energy used by the mind, but the consciousness has got nothing to do with the mind getting angry. Or let us say I'm sad. The consciousness is not bothered about the sadness. It doesn't worry about sadness. The mind worries about the sadness, but the consciousness doesn't worry about that sadness. Let's say I am interested in something and the consciousness has got nothing to do with this interest. So basically, in whichever way we take, the himsa is what I am trying to do, meaning what the mind is trying to do. Mind is trying to get what it wants and reject what it doesn't want. That's the himsa. So if it were to give up this and accept the way it is means as consciousness, considering itself as consciousness, and if it is able to do it, then the remaining 4 becomes easy. Meaning, if there is no himsa, then there will be satya. There is asatya or untruth because there is something to lose. Only when the mind comes to know that there is nothing to lose, it will only talk truth. So satya. Then there is asteya, that is stealing. So if there is no himsa in the mind for himself or herself, there can't be any stealing. I steal something because I feel that that is something good to have. Okay, then I can do brahmacharya. This is the critical aspect of life, is to be brahmacharya. Without this foundation of brahmacharya, it is not going to work out. Okay, now brahmacharya doesn't mean only the sexual abstinence. It is about sensual abstinence, withdrawing from the senses, all the five senses, and the sense object is what the brahmacharya would be all about. Then comes finally the when the brahmacharya is completely established, there is nothing to keep, so becomes aparigraha. Possessiveness is gone. There is nothing to possess. So when these five rules are perfectly done, this is where perfection comes. Life is imperfect, but this is perfect because consciousness is perfect, mind is not. So now we have put five yama in place, and then we are coming into the regulation, which is the niyama. When this happens, that happens. When this doesn't happen, that doesn't happen. So if this yama is successful and it is working, then the niyama is automated. So then it becomes shaucha, which is cleanliness, santosha, contentment, tapas is about burning oneself of the impurities, so removing all the impurities. Swadhyaya is to understand where the person is going and how far has he reached. Ishvara Pranidhana is about giving up that I am done it or this is my consciousness. Basically, Ishvara is that individual consciousness. So we are dropping off that individual consciousness once and for all. So with yama and niyama being perfected, the other six limbs are quite easy. There's nothing to do. Asana is the way you stand, you sit, you talk, you do whatever postures. Any posture in a given day, it need not be only sitting, any posture which involves talking, laughing, giggling, climbing, sitting, sleeping, all of those postures are filled with yama and niyama. Then, once asana is completely done, pranayama. Here is what the Kriya Yoga is all about. So now you are establishing the prana to move in a way it should be moving. It moves in all directions, so we are controlling that all direction prana to come into one single crux. So the prana. So you have control over the prana. Prana normally goes in various things. It tries to possess the objects. So prana is used in that. So pranayama is a process of yama there, that is controlling. What is there to control? Not the breath, but the energy that is getting used up on activities which has no intrinsic value. So what does this mean? Let's take an example and see. Now, SP Balasubramaniam died 3 days ago or 2.5 days ago. Okay. So when SP Balasubramaniam was there, there's a lot of singing was there and people appreciated the way he sings and all that. Now that body is no longer there. So his prana, that is all that he used up from his childhood till day before yesterday, is gone. It's out of trace. And he's been losing prana from the childhood or from the birth till day before yesterday. So what all activities which were worldly and whatever activity that was inwardly, worldly activities will get rebirth. Inwardly activities will remove rebirth. It's very simple. So the pranayama is the active is the disassociating the prana from outside world and instead putting the prana into internal. So this would be the pranayama. If this is perfected, then pratyahara is 100% guarantees. Ahara is food, pratyahara is to give up. What is the food for the mind? Food for the mind is the objects. What is the food for the body? The food for the body is what we eat. So the person will basically not worry about what is he eating. He will be worried only to sustain that life for brahmacharya, nothing else. So he or she knows that this is what I am supposed to be doing at this point in time. I am feeling hungry, Whatever is the food I will eat, I don't care about whether it is nutritious food or not nutritious or this or that, because it is what is dying. The mind is dying. It's not the consciousness is dying. Consciousness never was born, never will stay, never will die. It comes due to condition. When the condition is no longer suitable, it goes away. Mind is the one which is dying. So the reason why we actually get scared on dying is because of two reasons. One, it affects the body, and we are in love with that body, which is completely getting destroyed moment to moment, and mind doesn't want to die. So when we do pratyahara properly, that person has given up. And person means that mind has given up. It has surrendered to the Almighty, which is the consciousness. So when pratyahara happens, a beautiful thing which happens is dharana. Now the consciousness has taken over. Now we are in pure consciousness. No longer mind is interfering. Mind has become a servant. So now I become a dasa. So this is a beautiful state to be. So now with that servant, I can do whatever I want. I, in the sense that the original consciousness, which exists in everything. So when dharana happens, dhyana is the next obvious state. So the person is in meditative trance all the time. And once he establishes that is when the consciousness is completely established in it, samadhi is the only outcome. There can't be any other outcome than this. So it's so nice. We can see from yama to samadhi how a person automatically flows. And this happened to me this morning when I was just reflecting about my experience on Saturday and Sunday. Just this came up. Okay, here it is. This is what you are supposed to be doing. And this is what you are doing. Right? So now I'm able to see the gap between what I am doing and what I should be doing. So both things have come in front of the wisdom eye in the morning. So my physical eye is of no use now. My physical ear is of no use. My physical senses are of no use. Now I have a divine sense because now I can see what should be done and what is being done. All along with intellect, I was only looking at what should be done. I was not able to see clearly what has been done so far and where the corrections are or should be. So this morning, because of the Saturday, Sunday's experience, really got it. So if I were to compare that with Buddha teachings, it exactly works the same. So he says 4 things on speech, 4 things on body, and 2 things on mind. If you leave all of those 10 of them, you are perfected. And Patanjali also talks about 10. Buddha also talks about 10. Then he starts with mindfulness. How one need to be mindful or being in awareness. And he explains in many things about it. So there's no point in going into that, but it basically works the same way. The only thing is that when he comes to samadhi, he is able to show up on how to jump. That samadhi of Patanjali has some flaw, but it's not a major flaw also. If we can take this from there and attach it to it, perfect. And if we take Shankaracharya, same thing. You need to have Viveka, Vairagya, Shamadama, Uparati, Titiksha, and all that. So all the 3, or even if you take anything else, talks about moral foundation. So who wants moral? The mind has to be put moral because the consciousness is always moral. Mind is the one which is fabricated. Mind is the one which is misunderstood. Mind is the one which thinks it exists. But consciousness neither says I exist, nor it says I don't exist. It has no dualities. It doesn't say that I like this, I don't like that. Only the mind can say that I like this, I like that. because the feelings are attached to the mind. The feelings are not attached to the consciousness. The consciousness only makes things aware. What is in front is shown. It doesn't bother about what is being seen and how it is being seen. Let's say somebody is standing there without any dress. That's what is shown on the eye. But then the person will feel, oh, this is a woman and she is standing without any dress. Or he is a man and he is standing without any dress. So if I have karma in my mind, that is the sensual lust, that is there in the mind, that's not there in the consciousness. So the consciousness projects that, makes the mind hold on to that. So now my mind is corrupted with seeing that woman without any clothing and imagining something about it. Same thing can happen with a man, same thing can happen with any object. It can be phone to computer to whatever we are doing. So the lust is the one which associates itself with the mind. Now the mind gets that. So this consciousness make that experience possible. So the experiencer is the mind. The experienced is the object what this mind picked up to experience. And the one which made this experience experience possible is the consciousness. So what is being experienced and what is the experiencer in between these two is the consciousness. This connects the experiencer and the experienced. So the object is being experienced and the experiencer is the person who is seemingly experiencing it through the eye or through the ear or through the nose or through the tongue or through the touch and through the thoughts. 6. Now, if the consciousness were to be removed from that particular sense, let's say that woman who was standing now runs away after seeing this man watching her. Now what is going to happen? There is no longer that woman standing in a physical form. But the mind having already collected the impression, the mind can now carry that girl or the woman in his mind and do whatever he wants to do with that. Because the sixth sense can enjoy all the remaining 5 senses. So he can touch her in his mind. He can do whatever he wants to do with the other 5 senses, other 4 senses basically. So this mind is corrupted. Now, what is consciousness doing there? The consciousness is giving that experience to the experiencer. So now you have a mind object, and mind object has this mind as in itself as an experiencer. Then the consciousness connects the mind object along with the mind, and then the person is lost in his or her thinking about what he saw. But physically, that person doesn't even exist there, but mentally he can experience. Now he is using this consciousness for a wrong reason. So his mind cannot experience the purity of the consciousness, because what is established in purity is impurity. So if I were to really see how consciousness works, then I have to start from moral, not from the books. I should check my moral quotient every day in the morning. How much has it distorted? If it is not distorted, even for a minute, then I'm established in that pure consciousness, which is so blissful that nothing else you require. So from Saturday, Sunday to today, I am having this beautiful experience without a break. So this is what I wanted to share with you. I think I am done with my sharing, unless you want to know further more on this.
You didn't tell about the jump.
The jump is when I use the Buddha teaching. So now what happens is this individual consciousness goes away. The five sense consciousness are there, and that will go away, leaving aside the only consciousness. So what happens is in between the breath. This I've been trying from Saturday. So yesterday I was doing it at home. So here it is how it works. So now you take the breath, there is a stop, and every stop is that pure consciousness where the mind doesn't exist. So if you keep on observing it keenly, meaning first you have to make the breath to be, you have to observe the breath whether it is deep or it is shallow. Just observe the breath. Then you need to see that whether you're breathing from your head to toe and toe to head. This is an exercise which needs to be done. And then when you see that, the third one you need to add, which is not there in any other thing, is about the perishing nature of the self. So you need to experience the self appearing and disappearing, arising and passing away of the self. This mind self appears and the mind self disappears along with the breath. If we are able to get to this point, mind stops. And when the mind stops, you are that consciousness. There's no other. So you stay in that peace. So anytime you can enter into that after that, and you can come out anytime. It's a beautiful feeling wherein you are there. There's no doubt that you are not there, but you are not that which you are there. So the mind is completely laid to rest. So the difference, what I found, is that in the deep sleep state, the mind is there, but the senses are not there, and hence the breathing is there. In this state, when the mind itself doesn't exist, there is no breathing. There's absolutely no breathing, no heartbeat, nothing. I am yet to establish the heartbeat stopping of it. Okay, that will take some time. So this is the practice what I need to be doing henceforth. It is still in the WIP state, but very soon I should be able to get that. So he talks about three kinds of preparation which happens in our daily waking world. One with the body, it's a breathing. One with the thoughts, one with the speech, that is mental speech, and that is how I am speaking is through mind. So it's called mental speech, and then there are two of it. One is the thinking and pondering, and the third one is the mind preparation, which is feeling and perception. In that gap between the in-breath stop, out-breath stop, in these two stops, there is no feeling, there is no perception. Absolutely silent. There is no mind. Mind comes up with this feeling. I'm feeling this or I'm feeling that. And also it comes up with perception. Perception means identification. So we identify something or the other. So it all is fabrication of nama and rupa. So day before yesterday, when I started with looking at my wife name and my wife body, contemplating on my wife body and wife name. Can I see her name anywhere on her body? Or can I see the wife in the body or outside the body? So when I touch any part of her body, what is the actual feeling I'm getting? I'm getting only heat and cold and all that. So stayed with that for a long period of time. And yesterday when I was having breakfast, something very fascinating thing happened, is that I started eating without really tasting. The first time experience of yesterday. Meaning the taste exists, tongue is working, but I'm not tasting. I'm eating mindfully, but I'm not tasting. It literally feels like an effort of eating. And today morning, I could not do it. I could not get into that state of mind. But I think when I do the lunch, it will happen. So what happened yesterday when I had a breakfast? It made me so much contented until 3:30 p.m. I never felt like having hunger. Just filled up. And at 3:30, I had lunch. And then I could not sustain that. So I failed, meaning to say that if I had done it perfectly, like I had done it in the morning, then I need not have to eat in the night as dinner or whatever it is. So I still had this craving. I had some apple and all that. So that wouldn't have happened. So that is the work I need to do on that work in progress. So five senses are getting totally withdrawn. 1 minute. So some of them are in WIP, but certainly I'm able to see where the morality is being compromised when I look at the breath. It literally shows up. Okay, here is what it should be, and here is what I am. So in the breath, I'm able to see that and make that jump, meaning to say that you can drop it once the five senses are dropped. You can literally drop it. So how to like I was saying is that in Shankara you have what needs to be done. He talks about the five senses have to be withdrawn from the five sense objects. That's a jump. Whereas in Buddha he gives that step by step instruction on how to leave the senses and how to watch the sense object separately. Like I was explaining to you a few minutes ago about consciousness connecting both the experiencer and the experienced. There is no experiencer, nor there is anything being experienced. The consciousness is able to do that. So once we are able to get out of this individual consciousness, which is making up these five senses, meet with the five sense object, there is no mind. So mind disappears with the five senses going away. Then you have reached the destination, because that was always there, that is going to be there. So there is nothing more to be added to it. Only the mind and the five senses were causing this issue of how it gets into a feeling of this is my body, or this is my mind, or this is this and this is that. So this is a jump basically in everything. So if I were to take anything like Viveka as an example, he talks about Viveka should be there, he talks about Vairagya should be there, but the way of getting into Viveka, how portion is the jump, and then Vairagya, that again that happens when you really see what the senses are for. So you are going to have that Vairagya automatically happening because you have looked at what the consciousness is, what this individual consciousness is, which is connecting these five sense objects. So that is what the Buddha teaching is. And now today, in the morning, I was seeing all the three teachings, that is the Patanjali and the Buddha and the Shankara. It's so fascinating. I'm really enjoying that because there is no distortion. The only thing is missing in or I don't call it as missing, I call it as no information on how to do it is not there in both Patanjali and in Shankara. In fact, Patanjali gives the step. He has gone one step ahead than Shankara. He says, you start from here. You start from Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. So he establishes the Samadhi. But he's not able to talk about how that state is reached. Whereas in the case of Shankara, he has taken from the Upanishad, he has taken from uh, all the scriptural references provided with the what should be done. Again, in certain places, the missing portion is how. So if you add this, it beautifully you can jump. The only constraint today I'm facing from the morning, this mindfulness has to be there all the time. If even for a minute the mindfulness is not there, whether I'm talking to you or I'm talking to whoever just now called, if I get irritated, let's say there is an irritation, that is the dirt in the mind. I am not able to see from consciousness point of view. I'm only seeing it from the mind point of view because mind comes. So in that mind coming, the irritation is there. So when there is irritation, I cannot jump because that is part of sense. So it is blocked. Irritation comes because of hearing or because of whatever. So I didn't take this person who called me as hearing because I'm doing this meeting. So this guy calls and then that irritates. So this is also a sound. What I'm talking is also a sound. And what the mobile is ringing is also a sound. If that mindfulness is there, then there is no irritation. So I am always in that bliss. If I feel that I am talking and this person is disturbing me, that disturbance is a kind of klesha, or I can say impurities, which is still there because all the time I'm able to see right now is the sound passing, arising and passing away. I'm not hearing it as this is this sound or that sound, including the sound which is coming through this mouth. It's just a sound passing away. But it's not fully established in all the situations. If I were to get that for sight, if they were able to get that for touch, able to get that for smell, and taste and thoughts, all the six, if I'm able to get that, it's just passing away, arises and it passes away in front of the consciousness, not in anything else. All this arising and passing away are in front of the consciousness. The mind tries to pick it up, but it cannot pick it. It just passes away, irrespective of what the mind thinks, because mind itself is passing away, which is again another jump. This jump is again from the Buddha. This jump is not there in both of them. So when you can see that the mind arises and mind passes away, and then you will also see that the body is arising and body is passing away, that means for certain you already passed away, or the person has already passed away. Then he comes out of the death state because there is no longer death, because he's already seen that he's still awakened even though both the body and mind have passed away. That is the confidence one gets, because he is not dead. The true witnesser is not dead. The remaining things have died. Yeah, but
you said the mind arising, passing away, watching. Yes, it may be possible for us also to just see the thought point of view. But body arising and passing away, it's only possible after a lot of meditation, like you, right?
Yes.
Yes. Because we whenever we have that awareness, we feel that we are part of body is our part, or we are part of body. That looking like, it is arising and passing away is very, very tough to realize.
Yeah, so
not in Jagrati stage, not in Swapna stage. Anyway, the Sushupti stage, anyway, we can't understand.
Correct. So The thing we need to do is, this is again taking from the Buddha teaching, is that we need to observe the incoming breath and outgoing breath. And this is also there in the Kriya Yoga as well. So, or in the Kriya of the Yogananda and all that. So, the thing is that now the prana is already established, or the consciousness is already established. We can call by whatever name we want. Now, when the breath enters and breath stops, breath comes out, we might try to look at the stop. This is what is there in the Vigyan Bhairava Tantra also. We can look at the stop, but there's another way of doing it, is that not worrying about the stop, because then the mind keeps on checking where is the stop, and it'll never find, because as long as mind is there, it keeps on rotating itself, and it doesn't show that it is arising and passing away. Even the body arising, passing away is not seen. So what needs to be done is, you just keep watching the breath as it goes in, as it goes out, goes in, goes out. And you can see, you have to now look at the perishing nature. The breath is perishing. If breath were to perish, sooner or later the body is going to perish. If breath were not to perish, the body cannot perish. Because body is connected to breath. And mind is also connected to breath. So breath is a bridge between the body and the mind. So now we can see that as far as we are breathing, and if you want to make it even more stronger, you can look at people who have died out of corona, and they were healthy and they have died, and you can make yourself almost in that state. And this is what helped me on Saturday. I put the way SP Balasubramaniam died. So I was just looking at, I didn't look at the visual and all that. I was just visualizing it myself. That if there is breathlessness, you might be on ventilator. My body is also same kind. It can go into ventilator. Then I'm not able to breathe. So they might cut open from my throat and put a pipe into it and then do something like that. And then pipes will be there every part of the body, and I'm lying on the bed or on the stretcher, as something like that. And I have this catheter, and and I'm not able to urinate, I'm not able to deface, so they are trying to do all of that. And the kidney is failing, so they are putting me on dialysis. So all of that thing is happening. Now what is the state of the mind? It's in fear. So whatever perishes makes a person in fear. Because mind is in fear. Mind knows that it cannot stay. But what is the state of consciousness? Nothing. It went from this room to that hospital. It doesn't really matter to the consciousness. Whereas it mattered a lot to the mind. Mind had an association with this home, and disassociation with the ambulance, and disassociation with the hospital. So the mind now have to establish disassociation with this home, and association with the ambulance, and association with the hospital. Now it wants to come back home, but the doctors over there will not allow this mind to come back home. Mind is actually free, but it is bound by the body. Now the body has to undergo a lot of tormentation. Actually, it doesn't get tormented, but the mind gets tormented, because mind can feel what is happening in the body also. So if somebody were to give an anesthesia to that part of the body, mind cannot perceive, because there is no feeling in the body. That doesn't mean that there is no consciousness. There is consciousness, but in those cells the consciousness doesn't really exist. So that person cannot feel anything. And if they were to give him a tranquilizer or something like that, then this mind sleeps away, doesn't even know what is happening, who is coming, who is going. It just is breathing because of the instrument. So let us say if this mind were to be thrown in that way, in that place, what is that this person can do? That really gave me what the dukkha is all about. It doesn't matter how much money I have or I don't have or whatever it is. It doesn't really matter. There is this disassociation from the home and association with the hospital. So I have raga and dvesha. Raga for staying here, dvesha of going there. But the consciousness neither has raga, neither is worried about staying here, nor it is having any aversion towards going there. For it, both are same. Only the mind has this weird imagination. So if I were to sit and meditate, I could see that along with the breath, as the breath comes in, you can feel from the toe to the head, breath is going in and breath is going out. So you can deduce through wisdom that if the breath is considered as birth and death, which is true, because all those people who die eventually will have to lose their breath. That means the mind is the breath. So he started breathing first and he is breathing last. So even with oxygen being supplied to the nose, this person is not able to breathe. Now the doctors are worried why this person is not able to breathe. The reason why he is not able to breathe is because the karma of that mind associating with this body no longer exists. So it is on the way out. So when it is on the way out, it cannot breathe. If the karma were to be there for the person to stay back, then this body will recover. Even otherwise, the body would have recovered, provided the mind had to establish elsewhere. So if the mind were not to establish elsewhere, but in the same body, then the body will recover because the consciousness will stay back along with this mind. And what is getting recovered is through the consciousness. So what I can now infer from this is that when the breath goes in, the mind and the body is getting coming into birth, and when the breath goes out, the body and the mind is going out. How you can see it? Just watch carefully your out breath and in breath. You can see that body arises, body departs, mind arises, mind departs, body arises, body departs, and in fact both will be happening together. Another way to do it, when you really keenly watch, you can feel all the blood being supplied to all the part of the body. With every breath, there is a movement. If there were no breath, the blood need not have to supply. And there is nothing happening over there. So basically, the misunderstanding what we are having here is that I am breathing and this is my body. And with this, you can see that neither you exist nor the body exists. It's just consciousness which exists. And the mind is creator of the body. It creates the body feeling in the mind. So a Saturday, that experience of going to hospital, at least virtually, considering that I am on a deathbed, so just 5 minutes left. Now, what is the mind going to do? Was the question. And mind doesn't exist then. And that time I saw what the reality is all about when the mind doesn't exist. So we need to give a shock to the mind. Otherwise, mind will not allow this to happen. So during an accident, mind stops. And then the consciousness is only there. There's no body. At the time of death, same thing happens. Only consciousness exists. The mind is completely shut down. So when when that being comes out, it feels really happy because there is no long anything to bind. It is not bound by the mind. It is not bound by the body. But very soon the mind comes up because it has to then take this to another life. And considering this, in our tradition, we call that Atma is coming out and going into another body. But Atma as such has got nothing to do with what is entering and what is exiting. It just stays, it doesn't do anything. So you can work out on the body, you can work out on the mind also.
Very nice. So breathing in and breathing out, first breathe and last breathe, it is karma based.
Yes.
And it is happens from mind.
Yes. No,
Then when you are in the last breath, that mind stops. So when the mind stops, even karma is also not there during that time. It's only Brahman.
Yes.
That's what you said. And
yes.
Then the body is connected to, again, from mind creates the body, and based on again karma, the body is also there.
Yes.
So the breathing happens from mind only, right? It has nothing to do with the beyond anything.
Nothing to do with beyond anything, because see now in the deep.
And why this during that time, the last breath, why this mind takes full rest like our sushupti?
No, actually, what happens here is that I think I need to reshare the experience what I had some time back, which I shared with all of you. Is that, let's look it in this way: the dust particles which accumulate, like let us say now there is sun. So if you were to open the window, you will find dust particles. They are getting accumulated, and this light bringing them together. These two happens together. So the accumulation of these dust particle is karma, and the light which is making them come together is the chitta. So they two come together. What made them come together is because of the vasanas of the past. So vasana, karma, samskara. So now the body is not ready to have any samskara. There's no body right now. There's only this mental body is getting formed. So it will have another thing called as rutu. This is coming from the Buddha terms. So I am also adding this to make sure that we understand it correctly. In the rutu, what happens here is that it establishes two things. It establishes the type of the intellect that should be there, and also the internal sight and the internal sound and internal taste and internal there is sight, sound, taste, and there's no touch, smell. These four are there. Immediately upon this getting added up, this body starts actually smelling and eating. So it smells, just like when we give it to the gods. So we call that Ishta Devata, and we give the prasad, and then the prasad turns to be good. In this case, it is preta. So you will not have the goodness coming out there. It will not be good smell or a bad smell or whatever it is. It smells itself and it eats. So it creates a small body, which I had shown some time ago in that conference room, how it looks. So that can be called as a bhuta. So that bhuta is now in a waiting form for the Ninu Bekarba. So it is also waiting. So when we say that the Yama is going to be there and he's going to say that what is that it is going to happen, this body which is created out of smell is the one which is going to go through this Yama. Now this Yama will ask what all good things or bad things, and accordingly a particular womb is decided. So the thing what needs to be noticed is that without the karma, there can't be a body. So if you were to experience pain in the body, it is 100% due to karma of the past. So you can only experience pain and pleasure only through the body. So let's say when we wake up, nothing has changed in our life and everything looks good for whatever reason. It means the karma is at play, and it's a good karma which is at play. That means neither you are feeling exhausted, nor you're feeling tired, nor there is any disease, nor there is any problem with stomach or intestine or any one of these organs, and everything is beautifully working. Now, if the karma were to change, meaning the dust particles were to change, even right now as I speak, then what happens? Suddenly I'll get a headache. Okay, and I might say that, oh, headache is coming because cold weather. Okay, there is cold weather for hundreds of people, but why only me? I'm getting a headache. Now there is sneezing. When I'm sneezing, I don't think so 100 people are sneezing along with me, or the whole humanity is sneezing along with me. Only I am sneezing. Okay, and then I'm feeling feverish. It's only me who is feeling feverish, because that those elements are changing. So the Prithvi, Apo, Vayu, Tejo, Akasha, all the 5 elements keep changing based upon what is there in the karma. The mind cannot do anything about it. The mind job is to experience what it is supposed to experience. So the consciousness makes it sure that the mind experiences what it had done in the past. So if I had done good deeds in the past, it will not have any problem. But if I had done bad deeds in the past, it will actually have a problem. So the physical ailments are due to karma. Then the chitta, which already has the consciousness by itself, this will supersede the karma. That is, it has the ability to block the karma. Meaning, I'm feeling feverish, I can take tablet. Now that doesn't mean that I'm feeling feverish means I have to suffer that, but I will take tablet. Getting tablet or not is part of karma. So if I have done good karma, again I'll get tablet. If I don't have good karma, then I will not have tablet. So let's say I'm able to take the tablet, and then it works because it changes the chemical composition of the body. So the pain or the feverish tendency is gone. So all okay. But another person who cannot go and buy a medicine, he is so much he doesn't have money to buy, then what happens to that person? He has to undergo the torture of fever or the cold or whatever he is facing. So basically, if we can see this into operation, it's all defined by the karma, which is the joining of these 5 elements, and the chitta, which can make it happen, make this joining happen, plus it can sustain. So the intellect is there in the chitta, intellect is not there in the karma. So intellect is there in the chitta. So the 5 elements coming together is dumb. Actually, it doesn't have any intelligence by itself. It just come together because of the cause. The cause is this consciousness, individual consciousness. So now when this individual consciousness takes over, it brings up with the chitta, not the chit, it's the chitta. So now each chitta will have moral, it will have immoral, and it might not have any moral or immoral, just neutral chittas. So if intellect can be used to arrive at only the moral qualities in that chitta, then what happens? Then the karma of the negative can be blocked. Then if a person were to make it neutral, neither the positive will happen nor the negative will happen, and that is when consciousness reveals itself, because that is what was covering. The mind was covered, or sorry, the mind was covering the consciousness. Now the chittas are frozen. They're completely frozen. Frozen in the sense that they don't arise, basically. When they don't arise, the consciousness reveals itself. And that is the reason Patanjali was so happy in saying that Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha Tada Drashtu Swarupe Avasthanam. So now that is the Swarupa. The Swarupa is pure consciousness which has no beginning, no end. It is there all the time. Only the mind is the problem. And mind has chitta. So if the chittas were to stop functioning, the Rutu, that is the five senses, will go out of operation. There is no need. So it gets dismantled. So Chitta not being there, the senses have no work because there are no objects to pick up. If there is no object to pick up, there is no food to be taken. So yesterday, this experience of not having food from the time I had my breakfast till 3:30 showed very clearly that if my chittas are closed, there is no need of hunger because the senses are disconnected from the chitta. So if the chittas don't exist in that true existence and only the consciousness exists, the consciousness doesn't require food, doesn't require to urinate, doesn't require to go and shit or do anything. It doesn't require anything.
During this time, what happened to your body?
Body was perfect.
Physical.
Actually, I was so happy. For the very first time, I solved hunger. Now I want to do it in continuous way so that every 2 days once or 3 days once I can go and eat. Then once in a week I can eat. Once in a week I can drink. Then continue like that. So maximum is 7 days. You can't sustain your body beyond 7 days. So 7 days once I can eat. You don't really require food every day.
Actually, who is taking care of digesting the food inside? Is it Chitta or something different?
It is a Chitta. All of these experiences are coming from Chitta.
And the digestion process or even heartbeat process, it is not controlled with our awareness. It happens on its own.
Yes. But no, because of the mind. Mind is connected to everything, which is the Chitta.
Okay. Idea of meditation is to have awareness of that as well.
Yes. So my heartbeat yesterday had gone so low, but I was verifying it has gone so low. Okay. And I was talking to the electrician and they were doing work at my parents' home and I was not feeling hungry at all. Neither I was feeling angry with anything or upset with anything or anything at all. Just enjoying.
So you are in the blissful stage throughout.
Yes. So yesterday for the very first time I understood how you can stop hunger from arising and thirst from arising.
Mm-hmm.
It's a beautiful experience.
Yeah.
And you see, but if it works out that I don't have to eat and drink for 7 days, beautiful. I don't have to go
That is perfect yogi. Perfect yogi condition.
Yes, I don't have to go and urinate because the more I urinate, the kidney will go for a toss. So I don't have to urinate. If I don't go for toilet, it's even more better. The rectum and all the colon and everything, all the problems will go away at once. It's a beautiful state to be.
But you have enjoyed that through your chitta without experiencing the body.
Yes.
But the body is required during that time. Otherwise, after death also people can achieve the same thing, but because they don't have body, so they cannot experience.
No, just like your sleep state. You don't have the body, but yet you have the body. So So the difference between a deep sleep state and this is that in a deep sleep state, the mind exists, the senses don't exist. So there is no connection between the senses, sense object, but the mind exists. And hence,
so during this time, you feel like you don't really need a body, but a body is required because of to clear the karma.
Yes, the body is made only to clear the karma, not for anything else. So you are going to experience pain and pleasure because that is what was done as karma.
So purpose of body is to clear the karma and also acquire the stage of doing this meditation.
Yes.
Only two purpose.
Only two purpose, not for anything else. So you need to use it for exiting out of samsara.
Yeah, same thing, yesterday and today, that Dakshinamurti shloka, there are 10 shlokas. I was just listening to that. It is something very similar.
Good.
Fantastic.
Very nice. So this is basically the experience what you're going to have, irrespective of what tradition a person is following. So the only difference between the Buddha teaching and the other teaching is that in the Buddha teaching, the steps are there. On everything there is step, and in the other teaching, you don't have the step. It only says what should be accomplished. So it is like going to PhD without understanding that you are still in the 8th standard or the 10th standard or whatever standard we can put. So it only says what should be done. It doesn't say how to accomplish it. So you have to find your way yourself, however it is. And there are a lot of concepts. So you need to master those concepts also. And that's a painful part of this tradition.
This Buddha teaching, that Panchakosha is there?
It doesn't talk about Panchakosha, it talks in a different way. See, the koshas are a way of looking at life. Right?
Yeah.
So you have Annamaya Kosha and Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya, Anandamaya Kosha. Now
But how that Buddha teaching is explained? Is it through that yogic approach of Yama Niyama? Or
yes,
Panchakosha?
absolutely. No, the Yama Niyama is already there. So Buddha started with having moral foundation. So the Yama Niyama is also part of the moral foundation. So whether you use the Patanjali way of doing it, or you use the Buddha way of doing it, or Shankara way of doing it, first is the morality. Without understanding morality and without establishing morality in the mind, it is impossible to understand what is consciousness, because consciousness is moral.
Correct.
So when I have an intention in the mind, let's say I want to acquire something or possess something, and the consciousness doesn't possess anything. So that is a conflicting view now, right? So what the consciousness doesn't do, the mind would like to do. Consciousness doesn't have an husband and a wife, but mind has. So now either you drop that husband and wife and child and all that in your mind, so that you can be that blissful person away from the samsara, or you can be with husband, wife and children and all that. Call yourself whatever you want to call. But because there is a dependency, as soon as the mind has come to the end of the karma, it has to be re-established again in another body, because it wants to establish and enjoy or suffer the husband and wife and children and all that. See, the fun part, you look at it. When the child is young, the mother and father take care of it. But when the child grows and he kicks off his mother and father from the home, but the parent doesn't do it. Why doesn't the parent do it? Because the parent doesn't do it because the body is small. They consider this person as theirs, and they do a lot of things because it cannot speak and it cannot do many things. So the child is seen as a child. But when that person becomes 40 or 50 or 30 or 40, 50, 60, whatever year old, he has his own dimensions. He has or she has their own way of looking at things. And when the parents grow old, that means parents grow old means the body grows old. That they become like children, and these people become like parent. Now you can't keep them basically, because they don't live the way they were doing some years ago. They don't go into the childlike attitude when they become old. They want to still control their children the way they were, and that's not possible. And because that is not possible, they suffer. So the parents, if they are staying in the children's home, they suffer, because children will do what they want to do. They can't listen to what the parent says. So they have their life, they have their way of living, they have their way of seeing things, and that might not be agreeable with the parent. So they become a burden. So where do you throw the burden? Somewhere. And this is how the mind functions. This is the basic function of the mind, to either to like it or dislike it. But the consciousness neither has the liking nor the disliking. It just exists. There is no duality in consciousness. There's duality in the mind. So without morality, without having moral values, spirituality doesn't work.
So all these teachings by all these religions and acharyas, this spiritual, and in that spiritual, one common thing is you have to disengage from this prapancha.
Yes. Prapancha, yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Now, prapancha is made up of what? Prapancha is made out of 5 senses.
Correct.
All the 5 senses gives an impression that you exist. I am seeing, I am hearing, I am touching, I am tasting, I am smelling. All the 5 senses. And 6th sense is the mind sense, which will sense itself. So, 6th sense. Using the 6th sense, the person will say, "You are my son." And that mother has an impression of the son when he was 1 year old. That doesn't change. So throughout his life or her life, that mother treats this person as the same, but it is not the same. He has come here to serve his sentence or his jail term or his karma term, whatever we want to put. That person will end up doing what he wants to do. And since he is also the same kind as the mother or the father, he will also do immoral activity, because that is how the mind will try to take over. Meaning to say that if I want a property, then, or if I need money, if I need this, if I need that, I'm not going to wait, right? I want it right now. So I will do anything to get that. The mind wants it. But the consciousness, which is following it, doesn't do anything. It doesn't care whether the person is doing a stealing of it or hurting somebody or doing something. It just doesn't care. It just observes. And mind gets caught up with this observation. Now it gets new life with another body. Consciousness stays there, like a dog. Let us say a dog also has consciousness, but the mind is of a dog. Then it can become an elephant, it can become a snake, it can become a bed bug, it can become let us say a mosquito, whatever it is. So it is the mind which is immoral, which is getting punished. So if the mind were to be cut off from this, meaning if the mind were to be made pure by applying moral values, whether we follow Shankara route or we follow Buddha route or we follow the Patanjali route, first establish the morality in ourselves and forget the world. Don't have any sense of wife and husband and children and all that, because you were never born for that. You are 1 second. Sir, na meeting is in call martini. So
Vilas, I need to leave for another meeting now.
Same thing here. Okay, so then we will do one thing. We'll continue on this tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Very good.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.